when I got to college, I'm telling you, it was my freedom. It was my freedom academically, spiritually, morally, for me to start on the path to be who I wanted to be. Because somebody saw me at school in this activity that I love so much. And ironically, when I got to Tuskegee, I stopped playing in the band. I didn't play anymore.
But you continue with that education. Wonderful. Okay, and so that was your first one, the law, that led you to the law, the legal career?
Well, led me to the legal career was, again, I'm trying to prove to myself that I was truly smart.
Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. I am T.D. Blennaw. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us on the Falling for Learning podcast. Today we are recording from the CSS, which is the California Council for the Social Studies. And today I have an educator that could give you some tips, tricks, and information about how to make sure your kids are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Joining us today is Miss Smith. So, Miss Smith, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Shawntaye Smith. I teach 8th grade U.S. history at Desert Willow Middle School, Magnet Academy in Palmdale, California. Okay. This is my third year, a teacher, my third career in my life. I should have started with this one. I absolutely love what I do. I love it.
Wonderful. So, Miss Smith, can you tell us what hooked you into learning as a child?
My mother, when I was very young, my mother read to me a lot. And I still, to this day, remember how her voice sounded when I was laying in her lap. And then my grandmother was a cook at a preschool. And when I was 2 years old, my mother would take her to my grandmother, and I would sit in the kitchen while my grandmother would be the cook. Well, there was a teacher there who said, "Come on in here." And I started learning at the age of 2. Okay. And so I was always, it was just, everything in school always felt easy to me, and it was great, it was wonderful. And it really was a way for me to see my value, because no one can take that away from you. And it is true that knowledge is power, so I loved it.
So I want to go back. You were saying you're in your third career as a teacher. So tell us about your first career. Did it have to do with that cooking that you were talking about? Or
no, it had to do with, I was a criminal defense attorney. I did it for 2 years. And I didn't like who I had to be good at it for me. And so I didn't care for it too much.
Hold on 1 second. So you didn't like who you had to be. Okay, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, what happens inadvertently, because I was a attorney that was in the courtroom often. I worked for one of the most popular defense attorneys in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. And so in order to be that, you have to be competitive. But when you become a competitive, it's very difficult for you to remember your humanity instead of trying to win. Sometimes trying to win caused me to do things that morally and spiritually I was not comfortable with. But I have made choices. Now, this is me. Everybody's not like that, right? So, it fits differently for some people. Some people, it brings out their greatest humanity. For me, unfortunately, it didn't. At least in my opinion, it didn't. I'm just not a shark in the water like that. Although it is an incredible profession. It is. I still love the law, and actually, I decided next summer to take the bar exam in California, so I can be barred here in California, so I can help people. Because at this time, I figured out a way that I can use the law to empower people instead of doing the opposite.
All right. So this is really about knowing yourself. Like, this is not a good fit for me, because it compromises who I am. Right. And that takes a lot of reflection and self-knowledge and really empowerment about yourself, what you talked about earlier, about what different things that hooked you into learning. So take us into what brought you into that profession. So you got into that profession, you love the law, but what brought you there? Like, what, as far as your college career?
Oh, okay. That is a great question. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing my shirt of my alma mater, Tuskegee University, today.
Now, HBCU.
Okay, I grew up in Palmdale, California. At the time I grew up in Palmdale, I was not represented in my classrooms very well. Okay. and I did not have a good sense of self, which later on, it connects me to my love of history, right? But I didn't have a good sense of myself. And things were rough at home. It was during the 80s. Okay. And so what happened is that I'm at school, and ironically, I was a band kid. I didn't care for school, didn't like it, thought I was stupid. I thought I was too stupid to go to college. But because I loved band so much, I had to get a 2.0. So I was like, oh, okay. So I started doing my schoolwork, but again, that preschool education kicked in, and school was easy for me. So I ended up having really great grades with hardly any effort. I probably shouldn't say that here, but sometimes it happens. You get that way, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, but I still didn't have any ambition to do anything, and I got a letter from Tuskegee University. What is this? I did not know that HBCUs existed. Woo! So I didn't understand what this was. Now my mother is from Alabama, my grandma's from Alabama, so Tuskegee, Alabama, and and things were not going great at my house. Right. I needed to escape because I did know, of all things, no matter. It's ironic because I didn't think I was smart enough to go to college, but I always knew I was smarter than the average bear, right? And I was like, I got to get out of here. And I see this letter, and it was my ticket to freedom. But I thought it was my ticket to physical freedom, but it's my ticket to mental academic freedom. Because when you have your education, you can do anything you want. It gave me truly, truly the keys to my success. It really did.
That's so wonderful. I mean, I just want to highlight how, the reason we're called Falling for Learning is because it's about hooking kids into learning and loving learning. Because, as well as, we can't make them, force them, right? But if once they love that video game, they're hooked onto that soccer or whatever, we can't stop them. And that's what we want to talk about, those strategies, right? To get them to love learning. And your hook, in this case, was band, right? So that band, even though, you didn't care for school, whatever, things were going on at home, but you're like, I got to do my band. I keep my band. I'm keeping my 2.0. Hey. So that, by hook or by crook, right? Like what is going to get your kid in? And it you may not care anything about band, but if your kid likes it, help them pursue that, support them, because it could take them so far, right? So the band, the Tuskegee was looking at you to join their band?
No, that's the ironic part. To this day, I have no idea how they even contacted me. I really have no idea. But I do believe it was my band teacher that saw something in me. Because of all the students, we had a humongous band. Our marching band was 110 people. So we had a huge band, not a huge African-American presence in that band. Right. And, but me just being me, got my personality from my grandmother and my mom. Love you, Mom. I was always seen some kind of way, and what I was compromising because I thought it was wasn't that great. That's how I had the sense of humor, because I was as a defense mechanism. It just worked for him to see me, and I feel like to this day I think he's the one that contacted Tuskegee University, and everything just kind of happened right on time. I was accepted to Tuskegee University 2 weeks before I was supposed to be there. That's how late it was in the game for me. Woo! And it's just, it all fell into line. And when I got to college, I'm telling you, it was my freedom. It was my freedom academically, spiritually, morally, for me to start on the path to be who I wanted to be. Because somebody saw me at school in this activity that I love so much. And ironically, when I got to Tuskegee, I stopped playing in the band. I didn't play anymore.
But you continue with that education. Wonderful. Okay, and so that was your first one, the law, that led you to the law, the legal career.
Well, what led me to the legal career was, again, I'm trying to prove to myself that I was truly smart. And at the time, I'm old. I'm 52. I remember when I was in high school, LA Law was on TV, and I thought those people were so smart. And I'm like, you know what? They're smart. I could be smart like that. I can do this. Let me go ahead and go to law school, And then I'm a humanitarian. I was like, it's a way I could help people in the community and all that kind of stuff. That's why practicing criminal law was difficult for me, because my initial vision was to help people and help weakless community. You know what I mean? So. That's what happened, and as you get into it, I didn't really understand what it had to take me to get there. Like I had it in my head, but I didn't have a path to it.
Okay.
You know, a goal without a plan is a wish. So it was really a wish for me because I did not have a plan. But you know, it all worked out.
Wonderful. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing story. Yeah. So tell us about your second career. You had your second, you said you had the first career, then the second career. Tell us about that.
So my second career, and I'm laughing at it because it is due to the fact that a couple things. I'm from California, but my family had moved to Ohio. That's where I went to law school, and that's where I was practicing law. My grandmother, on the other hand, was still in California, and she was the strongest woman that I knew. But what happened was my grandfather passed away. She was there by herself, really by herself. She was lonely, she was sad, she was getting sick. I'm the oldest of 5 children. However, my sister, one of my sisters was developmentally disabled. She passed a few years ago. And my other brother and sisters had children, small children in Ohio. I was the only one that was free that I can come back. And I did it without hesitation. She was my foundation, why not? But as I was here, I was in Palmdale, that's where she was. It was very difficult to find employment with the education that I had with the jobs that were available. So no one wanted to hire me. I had a job for a lawyer as a paralegal. It did not work out. I was attempting to take the bar exam. It was just a lot to go through. So I was at church. I was disappointed about my job, and the lady at church like, you know what, I work at this radio station. Do you want to? I was like, it's fine, because in my head I'm thinking I can work at this radio station and study for the bar exam. Great. Did that, and I did not pass the bar exam. I missed by less than 4 points. But it's okay. I didn't pass it, and the studying for the California bar exam is more than an undertaking. You cannot work. You need to study for 18 hours a day. At least I did. Maybe some people have it. It's very difficult. But my point is, I did not give. Again, I didn't count the cost.
Hello, parents. All across the United States, we have students who don't know how to read well and who don't know how to write well. Now, I'm not here to shame you, but I am here to blame you. If your child is behind, it is partially your responsibility and your fault. That next generation needs to be the one that's telling your story, not other people, not other families, not other races or ethnicities. Your family needs to be able to tell your story. And if your child can't write well, who's going to tell your story? I have written 2 books to help address these issues. It is the Rewrite Method, the Parent and Educator Guide for Getting Middle Schoolers to Fall in Love with Writing, and the Rewrite Method Workbook, the Parent and Educator Action Plan for Getting Middle Schoolers to Fall in Love with Writing. This book gives you step-by-step and easy to use and implement activities to make sure that your child not only gets better at writing, but loves to write. Join us for Well Educated Wednesdays every Wednesday on Instagram Live at Falling for Learning. It is a free parent question and answer session where parents can ask questions, learn about resources, strategies, and tips to make sure their children are on track for learning and stay on track for success. That's every Wednesday on Instagram Live at Falling for Learning. We look forward to seeing you and helping the next generation thrive.
Another mistake that I made, I didn't count the cost as what it takes to do this. So I eventually got discouraged and I just started, okay, I'm in radio. Well, I was overqualified for the job I had, so I easily moved up, working in radio, to being the traffic manager. And it sounds very fancy, but it's just, you're just doing kind of paperwork still. Not using my degree, not using my intellect. But it was okay, because I had the freedom to go and take care of grandma whenever I wanted. Then my grandmother passed, and I got discouraged and felt lost.
It's a hard loss.
It was hard. It was hard. But I still, even through all of that, I still knew that I knew that there was a divine presence in my life. And I met my best friend, who I call my sister because we may as well have been born in the same womb. And she was a teacher. And she started youth ministry at the church. And she's like, we need people to help. I'm like, ew, kids, no. What? No. She's like, all right, well, you're not happy where you are. I'm like, okay, fine. And she told me, she said, you have all this education.
Right.
You can do whatever you wanted. Again, the keys to my success. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I could. And I started out substitute teaching. It was great. And several schools said, okay, you can be a long-term sub, which is great, but I wanted my own class.
Right.
And my heart still was with the law, with social justice, with history. And I was like, I want to go to sleep tired from doing good in the world. This is fun to me. I want to teach what I love and make money doing it. Not a lot of money. Definitely more on radio, but anyway. And so I went through everything I need to do. I'm still in my first year of induction. I'm finishing it now.
Okay.
And I started it, and I have not looked back. I absolutely adore it. So this is my third career.
So those of you who don't know, induction is like a beginning, teacher certificate. You get your certification, and then you have to get it cleared by doing a series of hurdles.
A lot of hurdles, children. But you know what? I have my education. I could jump any hurdle. So
absolutely, yeah. So it's just, I don't know how to explain it beyond that. You have a series of,
it's a probationary period.
Showing that you actually got those skills, right? The teaching you're doing, what you love. Tell us about some great things going on in the classroom.
Oh my goodness! First of all, I love my students, and I have this year, not bad about the other students I've had. They've all been amazing, but this year, these kids make me get up in the morning out of bed.
Okay.
These kids, and I'm talking about, they're at different levels. I have honor students. I have students that didn't think they were honors that are just like, oh my God, they just make my day. And they get there, and I give them these challenges. I'm like, do this. Cite MLA format. I need complete sentences. You spell that wrong, do it over again. I'm squeezing their brains. All of my assessments are about analyzation and about relationships and about construction and seeing everybody in history. I told my students, I said, who would I be if I give you something easy? That's like me asking you to do 2 and 2 is 4. I said, who am I? Who am I? Yes. I said, I want you to see what I see in you. And I said, you say my class is so hard, but it's so hard, but you have a 98% in my class. What does that say about you? Because they can do it.
Absolutely.
They can do it. And they never cease to amaze me. Because even students that don't necessarily write well, because I think it's amazing. I think kids need to talk to each other. So they get with their friends that write better, and they talk, and they have synergy, and they understand the goal rush. Earlier when we had another session here this morning, and they were talking. The main session, he was talking about the gold rush effect on Indigenous Americans.
Right.
I remember a moment in one of my classes, my students, they were reading about the gold rush, and he said, "Oh my God, 90% of Indigenous people were killed during the gold rush." I didn't tell him that. They're doing their research and working together. 90%. That's what I love, because he understands. We talk about themes in history. We talk about how everybody's related, how everything is connected to each other. All these communities were in everything at every point in time in history. And so when you read about an event, let's read about, okay, yes, that's what's written here. Who is it for? And they work, they go on that journey, and they just inspire me. They really do. They really do. I love it.
Wonderful. That's, just making history come alive and making sure students are into what, by challenging them, right? So what tips or strategies would you say for parents that may be struggling to get their kids hooked into learning?
Well, number one, read to them. Read to them. There's nothing wrong with a comic book. Some of the greatest literature on earth is in a comic book. Read to them, read with them, talk to them.
What if they're in middle school? Are you still recommending reading?
If in middle school is more difficult, I have to say, but I do still think, there's a couple things they need to do is, first of all, have the kids understand what the key of learning of success is by making it practical. When you go to the store, let them do the math with the sales discounts. Show them that it's not that far away, it's with you. You know, I have a budget. I have this much money, and I have gas to buy and food to buy. Let them walk in on those part of conversations. When you're watching the news, let's talk about how does this relate to you. Why should we worry about what's going on in Palestine and Israel? Why should we Why should we worry about any? Just have conversations. Middle schoolers do like to talk. They have their opinions and their passions, and just let them tell you who they are. Don't tell them. Let them tell you. When most of my students, as long as they feel seen and valued, they open up their world to you. They're struggling. They're not perfect.
Right.
They're going to make mistakes. But empower them. And, just the beauty of life without is something that is cookie cutter. We have all of our students are special, and they're special in their unique ways. And if they can love themselves that way, then they can be full and prepared to do whatever they want to do. That sometimes listen to authority. Even if you don't like the message, it is expedient for you to listen to and respect authority, because it's a teacher today. Tomorrow it's a traffic cop. There is a way to do whatever you need to do, but you have to be efficient with it. Like the Declaration of Independence. If you want something, you can't just go snatch it sometimes. Sometimes you gotta wait. Sometimes you have to understand that now is not the time. And I feel like that those things to me are the most important that I see with our students. If they can learn to love themselves and find their voice and understand that just because one way of trying to get your voice across doesn't work, it doesn't mean you stop. You come back and analyze, why didn't it work? And figure it out again. That's what I recommend.
Wow. I really like that. I want to go back to where you're saying that the students aren't perfect or they make mistakes. And I also like to point that out to students, like if I make a mistake and how I handle that, or with young people, or my daughter when she was growing up. So what is a mistake that you made with students or someone that you learned from it, right? Because this is all about falling for learning, and how did you handle it, or maybe you handle it differently again. So what's a mistake that comes to mind?
As a teacher, one of my mistakes I make often is sometimes I just blow my top. I just blow my top and go off on them or whatever. And the thing I really love about my students is that they give me room for grace. And so when I do that, I tell them, you guys, I'm sorry. I had a bad day.
Right.
Stuff is going on, but that's not your fault. So I try to bring you the best of me every day, and today I didn't, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can we start again? And they forgive me, so when they make a mistake with me, who am I not to do the same for them?
Right.
Right? And I tell the kid, you know what? We cool. I still love you. Let's start again tomorrow. I'm not gonna be mad at you. Go home, eat your little Takis. They're disgusting. I don't know how y'all eat them. I don't get it. Anyway, come back tomorrow. Here's a juice box. Sit down. Let's get some work done.
Right. I think that's something as parents, we can think about, because we aren't perfect. Of course, our kids aren't perfect. They're pushing against us, especially at this middle school level. The adolescents, right? So maybe making sure that we apologize to them, because if we're inflexible, we're not going to apologize. We can't really expect them to apologize to us. And then that reset, right? If I'm just mad and I come back and I'm whatever, and you should get it together, because I'm not mad anymore. No, we got to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, so parents have to think about that. Teachers have to think about it. And of course, when they make mistakes, then it's more easy for them to be sorry about that.
Exactly.
Because they learn from us, right? Good. So the teaching, you started 3 years. Compare it to your previous 2 careers. Compare it for us.
My previous 2 careers were about something else. It was my career in law was about me and my ego. My career in radio was about number one, my needs that I have outside of work, but then also to give me really an opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do, because that was a middle ground. I stayed too long.
Okay.
I stayed way too long. Like I said, I got lost when I lost my grandmother, but it was still a middle ground. I knew it was never the end.
Okay.
And I called it a career, but the truth is it was a job. There's a difference, right?
Okay.
But when I got into teaching, I work probably about 12 to 14 hours every day, sometimes 6 days a week. And I don't regret a second.
Okay.
When I was working in radio, I was supposed to get at work at 8:30-ish. Leave about 5:30-ish. I may have a long lunch. Just, it was a chore to get there to go.
Okay.
So the difference is that I finally go to bed now tired from doing good.
Like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, right. And instead of going to bed tired of being mediocre. You know, teaching brings out the excellence in me because I want to see it in my students.
So you were saying that the radio career was more of a job. So what makes the distinction? You just said there was a difference. What are some distinctions for you about a job versus a career?
One is for money, and one is for money to make ends meet.
Okay.
The other one is for something so much more than what money can be. It's about your purpose, walking in, staying in your purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So walking and staying in purpose. So difference between just getting a paycheck as a radio person, and like you said, it was more for making sure you had that room to take care of your grandmother and all of that. Good. Okay, so what's the plan for like 5 years? Like you're at this conference, what are some things that you want to do to help, further hook your kids into learning, help them reach their goals? What are you getting from the conference that you want to use?
Oh my God. Well, number one, inspiration. Talking to fellow educators that love students like I do is inspiring. Talking to other history teachers about brand new ideas that I'm interested in, like podcasts that I want to start next year. Just to bring out the best in all of them in different ways. In 5 years, what I would love to, and I want to say myself, but I don't know if I'll be well versed enough in it. But a friend of mine is really super excited about EduProtocols. They are amazing tactics for our students. And being a person that loves to teach history, EduProtocols is used a lot in math and in science, and reading, I do believe, but in social studies, the ability to teach the children so much in such a clever way is incredible. It's really incredible. So that's what I hope I'll see more sessions about EduProtocols, or even see a friend of mine maybe present something like that.
Can you tell us more about EduProtocols? We have parents who are sometimes very active with their kids, and then we have some parents that might be doing homeschooling that are involved and that are watch our podcast too. So would that be something? Can you tell us what it is, and would that be something for homeschool parents or something like that?
It absolutely can. I'm sure of it. Not that I wrote a book on it, because I didn't. I read one. But basically, EduProtocols are just procedures we can use in education to help the kids learn without making them feel like they're working so hard. Okay, like one EduProtocol is called Sketch and Tell, for example, and you have on one side the kids draw a picture, and the other side they explain what's in the picture. And you can use it for all kind of incredible things, right? You have things that have been around for a while that have been adopted in EduProtocols, like Frere models.
Okay.
We use those in vocabulary, but I use them in history often.
Okay.
Like you have the center part. I want to just access different parts of it. You use it for so many things.
Okay.
And the students they write, it is not about the quantity of what they do, it's about the quality of what they do. So it's just, there's tons of books about it. I shouldn't say tons. There are tons of books about it in specific subject matters and EduProtocols or whatever, but it's a Facebook community that they can get onto to just, if you're a parent and you want to know what it is, EduProtocols community on Facebook.
Okay.
You have people on there that just post stuff for free, and they can look at it and talk to people. So it's a really good resource.
All right, great. That sounds good. Anything that you want to leave our listeners with, or our viewers with, about how to hook kids into learning, or how to overcome some struggles that the kids might be having in their adolescence?
Well, one thing to hook kids into learning is if you're excited about it, they'll be excited about it. If you understand it and love it, they'll understand it and love it. And students struggling in middle school, just as difficult as I know it might be for parents, they're trying. I have most of the students I have met, no matter what their so-called reputation is, they're still just kids. They're gigantic. Some of them are 6 feet,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And some of the girls wear lashes better than I can ever imagine, but they're still kids. Give them a break sometimes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Smith. And we appreciate you from joining us. And thank you all for joining us as well. And have a great week.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.